right, Devils, how are you today? Sam here with you on Thursday, August 2nd. I'm kind of midday here, and today is the day where we poll our members and we look for their input and their suggestions as to what they'd like to see reviewed in video. Today we focus on traditional assets, so we have a couple of we have a couple of foreign exchange pairs that we're going to look at. So we've got the euro and the yen today, both to the dollar. So here's the euro on a 60-minute chart. So I wanted to just bring this up first, just to I'll kind of make a point here. So there, if you just default to an hourly and you bring up the euro and you take a look at that and you think, okay, well, where am I? What kind of count do I have going on here? Well, right. So I'm just trying to make the point here is that this is clearly there. You know, how are you going to get a wave count on that? You got nothing but just a big fat range. But if we step out and we look at it now, here I'm on an 8-hour. We can start to get some context. So you can see all of this up this little tight range that we're in. Looks a whole lot like the tight range we had just back, well, what are we going back here now? A couple of months back. And it would appear that this is ripe for a break. So it looks like we're looking to break this slower trend line. We've got some targets down here that would be in sync with the larger degree. So I just want making that point that with FX, because these are long-term trending markets, you really want to start long-term. So even starting with the daily is what I would suggest. But if you can, if you can go from a daily, you want to get a little more detail. So look, we'll just look at it. So here's the daily. So you start to put that in some context. Well, where are we relative to where we've been? Well, of course, just simple stuff, or just grabbing from swing high to swing low. Well, what have we done? Right, which I've shown in prior videos. We've just gone right to the 618 and then had this retracement. So you want to get some context there so you know where you are in the count. So right now you can't, the trend is still down. We can't confirm a new trend up until we break that 65, right? So just again here from the daily swing high to swing low. So you put that in context, you think, okay, well, if I can't declare the trend change until we break on the other side of that 65, well, what do I do with this? Well, of course, this could, right? So there's a very real possibility that what you have here, because we've got this nice 5-wave structure here, you just got a 1, 2 going in before you go 3, 4, and 5. So let's get that. Oh, let's go up to green, the color of money, and we'll go to intermediate here. So on the larger degree, it's very possible that this is just the first attempt. Well, for those of you that follow our cryptocurrency analysis, think of my recent analysis where we've had Bitcoin come up and go right to the 65 and then pivot, right? Couldn't make the trend change. So here, this could be we're going right up to the 618. We're a little shy of the 618, so likely that's just algo front running there as they defend. Right here was when they started selling at the 50. So they defend there. Now they have a target. Right? So those, I'm quick to remind you, the sellers up here have a target down here. Well, we can think about that and say, well, what are the odds of that? Well, we've got this very clear and clean, we're starting there in 2016 to it's about a 1.5-year trend to define this nice 5-wave impulsive structure we have to give us potentially now a 1-wave. And I suppose we can consider also, because it's 5, excuse me, we could have, this could be an A, B, C going down, but I don't think that's what we likely have here. I think we're just seeking the 5th of the C of the 2nd to give us the setup here to be looking to be buyers. Down here we've got this nice little confluence zone to be buyers looking for a much bigger 3 up above. All right, so taking out the 65 on the way, thus establishing the longer term trend. Now again, I'm hypothetical here, but just when we get a pivot down here, right, so we can just start constructing a roadmap here. So just for fun, I'll say we go to that algo target here. So we start looking at this, thinking about, well, that would certainly break it. There's the first target. That would be unlikely. So it'd be surprising to me if we just did, well, this straight here to a 3rd. But that certainly could be, we could do a 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be a couple of different degrees here working towards what would be the larger degree here on the longer time frame, which would put our reasonable target up here for all of these. So if we're going to go 1, 2 and go up to the 1618, well, we're talking about substantially higher prices here in the euro to the dollar spread. So you know, there's a potential roadmap. Now that could take years to get there, right? So if I'm looking at, I won't even give me, does it give me a year count? Yeah, that's 2020. So it could be, again, long-term trends, right? So keep that in mind when you're approaching these markets. So let's deconstruct this a little bit and see how close we are to potentially identifying a pivot here. So knowing now that we're playing this, or what I would propose to you, there's an opportunity to identify this and play this as a 1-2 going in, recognizing that this pivot will be significant and that it is technical. Well, now let's go down. Let's go. Well, we were on the 8-hour. Now, if we get this break here, it would give us more confidence in this count that I'm showing here. Let's go to a 4-hour. I'll do it. Okay, so if we look here, now I've been through this spread a couple of times here in video recently here, so I won't spend too much time. We had thought that this was the third, and this was setting up for a triangle to go up and give us a push from here. The thought was that this was going up to put in a more symmetrical 5 here relative to the 1, 2, 3, and 4. We don't get it. We get essentially a double top here. And then that triangle can be relabeled and recounted as the market reveals what it's doing. And it looks like we get a 1 wave here coming straight down. ABC into a second, and then this looks like it's 1, 2. Got a nice little ABC into my 2 to give me my 2 wave here. So that what we thought was a triangle ends up being an ABC into a 2, and then a 1, 2, 3 looks like 4 down for 5. That's what it would appear at this point. So 3, 4, 5 into a potential 3. Now, so looks like we're double bottoming. So note here, so much like we double topped up here, looks like we're double bottoming here ahead of the 50. But if we really work through that count, it would appear as though this looks more corrective. So it looks like we might have some sort of a triangle here. So we might have an A, B, C, D, E. We'll see if we break here and what it looks like. So I'd be looking for, so a couple of possibilities here. We might have one, let's see if I can get this to work for me. Looks like we might have 1, 2, and then a start on a 1, 2, 3 to get. So we certainly could have a diagonal, something like that, to take us down. Hard to say. We aren't going to know until we break out of this. Now, right now, so we just look back historically and we look at this kind of action followed by this kind of action. If we do, and we do not know yet, we haven't broken yet. If we do break lower, break that trend line support, and we head down for this. Well, then we're trying to figure out, we're trying to get a target there. So there's a couple of things we can do to try and build some potential confluence. So we can take the length of our 3rd wave here, get it right on there. So this makes sense, right? So 3, we're between the 23 and the 38. This kind of sideways action, very, very reminiscent of what you'd expect to see in a 4th, but we have yet to break this trend line here. We tighten this up a little bit. So we've yet to make a good breakdown. So we have a potential algo target down here. We also, just going through all the tools that we can use to look to identify a potential target zone. We can take the length of the 1 through the 2. We look here and we see, well, we're kind of in between here on this proposed 3rd. So then I might take it here and look from the 4, looking for symmetry, the relationship between the length of the 1 projected from the proposed 4 here, and looking for some potential targets. So we get a couple. So here's parity, here's 100%, so that's something to keep an eye on. That would put us in between the 50 and the 618. But down here we get our algo target, we get our 1272, so that's an area to be paying attention to. And then if we were going to go all the way down and challenge the 618, we'd be bumping into, well, here we have this zone down here. So we have the 1618 overlapping very close to the 65. So as a potential last stand, if we're looking for a target here as to how this might shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially now. First we've got to break out of this triangle. If we're going to break lower, right, if we're going to make this break, these are all potential targets where we would look for things like some divergence here in our indicators. Clearly we'd want to be looking for the RSI to be oversold, but we're seeing signs of some divergence here as this gets weaker and weaker and weaker. Now we don't have new prices yet to get classic divergence, but that's something to be watching. and then looking for this price action. Can we come down here and can we carve out 5? If this is the 4, it's hard to say because we might have A, B, C, D, E if we're going to bounce up one more time. It's hard to say where that 4 is going to come in. It could well be in here, and that this is some sort of an ugly, excuse me, an ugly diagonal getting started. It could be over here. And then we've got some sort of a wonky triangle, and before we break down, we won't really know until we see how that reacts here. Are we going into a third or not? But my guess is here that we've got one more push lower. I'd be very surprised if we bottomed here and we left this just hanging and we ended up with some sort of a truncated 5th or something. That's going to need to resolve here one way or another. I suppose there's a case that could be made that we have bottomed here with this double bottom, and this is some sort of very ugly diagonal getting started to the upside, but I think that's much less likely. So I'm looking for this to resolve, come down here, but all it's doing is setting up the opportunity to be a buyer. Right? So we've got 3 levels that would be points of interest. I wouldn't be sitting here with an open order sitting to buy that. That I would not be doing. I'd want to see that price action come down here. So even if well, let's go down to a 1 hour, which is where I would tell you to keep as a minimum with regards to trade analysis. Any lower than that, there's just way too much noise, in my opinion. Others people may disagree with me, but so if this is our 4 here, and whether it's, I guess we'd have to be here. If this was going to be 4 and we were coming down, so there's an example of where you really would have to dig into a smaller time frame to try and get time frame to try and get a 1, 2 out of that. I can get a 3, 4, and a 5. Not gorgeous, but there it is. Then this little sideways wedge action here, very reminiscent of a 4, but is the 4 here? Could this be? Could we carve a diagonal out of this? So if this is coming down here, could we have a potential? Possibly there's something like this going on. I got way too large a degree there, but let's get that. We can go micro. That'll work. Okay, so possibly something like that going in, which would put some targets down here. We're going to get a decent 3, 4, 5. So these are areas of interest. I would just certainly mark them on your chart. So what I would do, for me, I would have an alert here. I'd want to know as we're approaching the 100, what does this price action look like? If we're going to get through that, or if I don't like what I see there, then I'd be alerted down here. I like this a little bit better, actually, just in terms of the symmetry of where we may be going. So I would be looking for this to finish in that fashion. So we'd be looking for something like this. Well, then we'd have A, B, C into this, and then some sort of a 5-wave structure to come down here. Maybe we're going right to the golden zone. Bring this down here. So this would all go down here. So there's a potential roadmap. First thing, we got to break this. We got to break these pivots here. We got to break below these pivots and get some traction. So if that's gonna play that direction, I think the next opportunity for a trade, again, assuming we break here, is in the next retracement. All right, trade. So if this is going to trade as 1, 2, so we'd have it this way. So we'd have A, B, C. I suppose you could make that case that we had an A, B, C going into that 2. We don't get a new high. We don't get a higher high on the C, but we've got a contender there for a 1. All right, so here would be the play as the 1, the 2. Assuming we break down here, we're looking for that 3, the 4, let it retrace. So here's the next trade, in my view. There's the next trade, going short down, looking for that 5th, trying to set up for the double bagger where you're taking the ride down and then letting that set up for the opportunity to be a buyer here to catch the move out of that. So then from there, looking for something like this. Right, you get the idea. So can we come out of there with a motive wave? So that's the trade that I see setting up. If you're patient and you can wait for it, right? If you want, I mean, hell, I suppose you could be. See, I'm not a breakout trader. I want to sell it when it's going up. I don't want to sell it when it's going down. So as far as I'm concerned, this has to resolve, and then I wait for it to retrace, and I look for the move back down. I'm not a breakout trader here. Now, some people do it successfully. It's just not my style. That's not what I look for. So I would not be a seller on the break looking for that. It's just, now this, were I watching this, which I wasn't, this I might have considered. But, you know, looking here as you run into all of this, so how many times do we test that? 1, 2, 3, 4 times up here. where we just can't seem to break it. So we get this big shelf up here of resistance. That's a potential sell, right? But I'm not in it, didn't see it, haven't been really watching this. That's just me, right? So here, if you see, I look at it this way. Well, if you're a seller here, all right, so let's play that out. So if you were a seller here, where are you wrong? Right, so you got to take it all the way back to this prior pivot. So then you look at that and you say, all right, well, let's just do the math. Let's see what it looks like. So if you're a seller here on the break and your stop's got to be here and you've got a target down here, that's 2 to 1. That's just not good enough for me. Now, if I were a seller up here and I can be very tight, let's say I gave it that, and I've got a target down here. Now I've got 5 to 1. Right? So I always want to sell when the market's going up and buy when it's going down. Right? That's just been conditioned into my brain. I refuse to trade breakouts. I just won't do it. I've just been burned too many times trying it, and I don't do it. So if it's going up, I'm looking for a sell. If it's going down, I'm looking for a buy. So as far as I'm concerned, this is not a new trade setting up, even though there's money to be made there if it goes to that kind of target. I'm waiting for the retrace so I can sell it here, define my risk. There's a couple of obvious spots I could consider. So right here, if we're going to violate the wave 1 low, all right, so if I were, depending on the depth here, well, let's put it together. So if I was a buyer here, now I'm hypothetical here, I don't know that we pivot here. But if I'm a seller here, well, I can put stop on the other side of the 65, would be just on the other side of the wave 1 pivot, which is there potentially for some resistance, prior support kicking in for resistance. So the opportunity to be a seller at the 50, love that. Well, I bet I can get 3, 4, 5 to 1 off of that. So that's just my thinking as I look at the market. I do not like trading these breakouts, but that's just me. A lot of people do it, and many do it successfully. It's just not in my DNA as I look at the market. So that should give you enough to work with there, at least in terms of what I see both for the next short-term opportunity and then the larger degree count. As far as I'm concerned, this is all just setting up to be the next buy opportunity for the 2 to catch the 3. So if we take it all the way back out to where we started, we're just looking for the next big push higher. Let me get that out of there. So if we're coming down here, this is big opportunity here. That's the biggie. All right, so that'll probably give you enough to chew on there for the euro. And we'll see how that resolves. It's going to be interesting. All right, that's a wrap. I'll be back. With analysis of the other winner today was for the dollar yen. So I will be back to give that a review shortly here. Just a reminder, please do give us a follow on Twitter as we make a real effort to engage with our Twitter followers and offer you some bonuses and incentives. Let you. There's always a day in the week we'll let our Twitter followers pick what gets analyzed. So we've got this contest running. You can read more about that over on the Twitter feed, and you can always visit our website to learn more about our membership, and that's at tradedevils.com. All right, guys, back to you later.